Hey, welcome back to another Just 15 Minutes, and we might even make that this time around. It's been a few weeks since the last video, and I guess this one's a little bit cheeky because it's not actually showing any code as yet, but I will be because this is I think, quite an important point that we're at with all the AI and being able to connect to things and all sorts of things. So apologies if you're looking for something where it's actually got sort of code examples. Like I say, it will do. It's something I think we're anybody working in any limited way of coding with AI are probably going to come across MCP, Model Context Protocol. I did a couple of just 5 minutes podcasts, and there's loads of information out there. And just to actually show, I'll put these links below in the show notes anyway. But this one here, this was from, I don't know, it wasn't too long ago, 4 days ago. Yeah, there you go. This is from IBM. This is a guy, I think he's one of their head crazy sort of AI people that work with all of this stuff. But it's really good. It's from IBM, but MCP versus APIs. It's actually a really interesting video to actually watch. It's quite short. It's 13 minutes, but that probably will do more justice explaining MCP and put it in context, because a lot of people know what an API is. Application Programming Interface, APIs, REST, all that type of stuff. So people probably know that more than they would MCP. So this is a great video, I think, because it gives you the comparisons and how it is different and XYZ. So yeah, so it's definitely worth checking that one out. Like I say, I will put the details in the show notes, including all these other links as well. But so the idea is MCP was created by Anthropic, who make Claude. You know, if you've had a play with Claude, Sonnet or whatever it is, and the desktop and all of that. And we're really with a view, because obviously connecting AI, I was going to say coding, it isn't really just coding, but with the whole RAG thing, retrieve augmented generation. So where you can use a large language model, so it could be a small language model. It certainly could be open source and running locally on your machine if you've got the ability to do so. But anyway, those large language models generally, ChatGPT, whatever, Gemini, whatever you want to use as the back-end LLMs. Well, with RAG, you can actually get your own documents to be part of the LLM. So you can have like PDFs, or you can access other bits of data, text and whatever, but also, the AI systems, the landscape's moving so quickly. It's changing all the time. You can hook into everything and anything, it seems. But anyway, with agents as well, so there's all these agentic frameworks out there, absolutely hundreds of them now. But either way, there's always this sort of friction point of getting all these things to work. Now, I've used Microsoft 365 Copilot because it's with my day job, it's all sort of Microsoft and Office documents and things like that. Now, that was fairly straightforward to actually build a RAG implementation, but it's not free. I mean, it is to play with and to start with, but taking it further, it's not necessarily a lot of money. And you could argue having something where you've got a chatbot that can actually respond to your data as well, as other things, is maybe quite valuable, especially for, say, self-service help desk or knowledge base articles and things like that. And I think that's actually a really good, sort of way of using the sort of RAG approach, but you can use it for obviously lots of different things. Okay, so that's great. But then when you get into a little bit lower level than that, and you've got, or you're building or starting to build, say, an AI application yourself, and even if you're not even building your own code, connecting all of these other systems. I started having a look at this with semantic kernel from Microsoft, and there's Pydantic framework, and there's quite a lot of other things out there that sort of give you the ability to call like functions. Like, you can create a function to go and call this API to pull back data in as part of your your sort of AI chatbot or AI process flow. But the problem is you've got one thing for, oh, right, I've got to change that. I've got another API to think about. You still might have to do that. But where MCP comes in, the model context protocol, and the model context is one of the big bits. Like I say, the video that I've got the link for is really good. It will explain a lot more about the MCP, but it's a standard to allow AI models to have a defined way of talking to, getting context, knowing what documents are available, knowing what tools are available, that sort of thing. Like I say, that video, go and have a watch of that for sure. But MCP is essentially a standard. It isn't one application, but I think Anthropic, who made Claude, did a very good thing. They released this, and I think it's been adopted by a lot of the big players. Certainly, Microsoft have got to pick up on this, and OpenAI, the ChatGPT folks, I think they're implementing it as well, because it's like a lot of protocols. We use HTTP, we use all these types of things, REST and all that type of stuff for APIs. So it sort of makes sense that there's some sort of standard way of a large language model talking to tools and other things. Okay. But anyway, on to what I'm trying to get to today. There's a lot of preamble with all of this, but the idea is this MCP, there are, I think, hundreds, if not thousands, or tens of thousands of sites with MCP catalogs, basically. And there's, again, nothing wrong with that. I'm not having a go, but the idea is a lot of these MCP servers, these are the bits that actually talk to different systems. You'll be able to see in a second when I show a few. That's great. So people can develop these MCP servers. They can then be bolted into things like VS Code or Claude Desktop or other clients. You can actually embed them in your own code as well. So your code becomes a client as well, if you like. But you can certainly have it bolted into a lot of the sort of AI applications. Okay. But the idea is these MCP servers, there's lots of them already. Everybody's done a bit of a gold rush. And they've probably created some very interesting things. You can connect to database servers, you can connect to file systems, Google Drive, whatever. And all this sounds really great, but also quite scary. And apart from tinkering, when you then think about taking this a step further to, like a production type of system, you've really got to trust what those MCP servers are actually doing. I mean, I'm sure the majority of them are legit and everything else, but are you going to trust something that opens up your database, to this? Now, again, just to be careful there, when I say open the database, usually the MCP server, you can actually be quite specific. So, there's a situation where it might, the MCP server might have one specific SQL select statement to return something, and it's classed as an MCP tool, and it will only ever do that. It's not exposed publicly or anything. So there are levels of protection with MCP, but the point being is, again, why is this different to an API? But again, have a look at that video for more details. But the point being is, rather than having a separate bit of code to do this API, a separate bit of code to do that, these MCP tools have got the same interface, if you like. Tools are just one aspect of MCP. There's context with documents, but anyway, it's a standard way of building that interface, so the large language models can communicate with these MCP server backends, which these servers are the things that talk to Google Drive, a database, whatever it might be, your file system, your web browser, But Docker have come on, and I think it's a good thing. I think this isn't the last of what we're going to see. I'm sure all the big vendors are going to be jumping on board and offering secure ways of having MCP. But the point being, if I scroll down here, I'll put these links in anyway. But it's actually some really good points like this, like discovering the right official and trustworthy tool. So just what I was saying about, there's loads of these MCP catalogs already cropped up saying, hey, this connects to that. Hey, that connects to Obsidian Note Taker or this or that or whatever it might be. But do you really trust them? Because let's face it, it might even be unintentional where there's a bit of a security hole. So basically getting an official or at least trustworthy tool from the MCP side of things is going to be a key point, I think. Complex installations and distribution, yes, certainly. Yep, there's loads of people that can you can write these now in Node, Python, C# and other languages as well. So you can write these MCP servers. But there's all sorts of bits that you have to think of and all that sort of stuff. And also, obviously, not to put that as a secondary option at all, auth and permissions. So, yeah, basically, many MCP tools run with full access to the host, which, yeah, not a good idea. So, again, if you're not quite sure what you're doing, you've created an MCP tool with full access to like root file system or something silly, or the database with admin access. Goodness me. Those things are not going to go down too well when you try to push this into production, are they? So anyway, the idea is Docker, and again, I'm sure lots of others are going to jump on board, Microsoft, Google, all sorts of vendors. But the point being is that these are going to be MCP servers that are actually running in isolated containers. So it's taking Docker, as you know, Docker containers, all that type of thing. I think it's a clever thing that Docker have done here. They're jumping onto this, so saying, well, they can provide trusted MCP servers in containerized Docker containers. So I think this is really quite clever because a lot of people already use Docker for a lot of containers for running and testing, all that type of stuff. So, already it is in beta, as at the time of this recording, which is the 9th of May, 2025. But you can see where it's going. And again, if you ever read of this blog post, there's a few bits about why it is quite important to have the security. They're going to have one-click MCP client integration, which I think is really good. So again, you can hook in your MCP servers via Docker into things like Cursor, Windsurf, VS Code, Claude, blah 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 blah. There's loads of clients, MCP clients out there, and you can actually have a client can actually be your own code as well that can act as the bridge, if you like. Okay, but again, it's looking really quite interesting how you can connect these things together. Because at the moment, even though I've had a play with MCP from a C#.NET world, and I think Node, I think I did a tried one in Python as well, but certainly the C# one, there's a few bits. It's very codey, and there's there's a lot of little cogs that you've got to get in the right position to make it work. So I think it's really quite interesting, and the very fact that they're saying enterprise ready MCP tooling, I think is a good point. So essentially, when you have a link from that website, this is the hub.docker that we all know. So that's where you can go to find other containers for everything from databases to web servers to whatever. It's been around for quite some time now, of course. They've now got the MCP part of that. Okay, so I didn't want to go into there. Here we go. If we go back, yep. So at the moment, they've got it's showing 108 repositories, but you can see it's got everything from Playwright, which is the automated browser testing tool from Microsoft that you can actually integrate. And you might ask, well, this is great, but how does all this work? Well, in your MCP client, again, that could be your own code, but it certainly could be Windsurf, VS Code. Those things can act as clients, and they can expose the tools like these. Think of MCP servers in this light anyway as tools. So they can hook into Notion, they can hook into, all sorts of different things, Stripe, you name it. And it basically means that the large language model, when you're asking questions, it's got the large language model, but it can also reference those MCP tools. And that's the other bit that you'll find when you ever read through the other video. The other part of MCP is the fact that how it is discoverable. So how is your tool that you write or you have that connects to Stripe, how is that actually even found by the LLM? So that goes into a bit more detail as well. Like I say, Obsidian, we can connect into that. We can connect into all sorts of things. Now, when you look around of MCP servers, these catalogs are cropping up all over. There's hundreds, thousands now, tens of thousands even, MCP servers. But so you might be tempted to go and try one, but it's worth having a really serious look at what that MCP server is actually exposing, what it's doing. Obviously, right now, I'm sure the Docker MCP hub is going to be getting further and further up to date with a lot of other MCP servers. I can see there's an official GitHub one. There's one for Azure, for Slack, for Postgres. And again, the great thing is these are in a secure, isolated, containerized environment as well, which I think is brilliant. So yeah, very exciting how it's going. It'll be interesting to see this new world. But it is, I think, not that I'm of any knowledge really, but I've just got a spidey sense about this, that MCP is a very big thing. It's like APIs that connected systems years and years and years ago. It's that sort of pivot point. I think with all the AI models, whether they're large language models, as I say, or small language models that can run locally on your machine, or open source models, having the connectability in a standard way for all of these other services, I think is quite a big pivot point. And as ever, I've rambled on. I've gone over 15 minutes, which I thought for some reason I would actually, because I'm actually not showing any code, but there was a lot of stuff to actually throw in there, especially with all my rambling. So hopefully you found it at least a bit inspiring, or if you're not sure about MCP, it's given you another bit of a direction to go and have a look at. So please like and subscribe if you wish, and we will catch you on the next one.